Welcome to NHL Tonight, first shift to new beginnings. My first time working with Brian Boyle earlier this week. Now, a pleasure to be alongside Dan Rosen and Adnan Virk. NHL at the Rink, by the way. Love the podcast.
Appreciate it.
241 episodes now.
That's a crazy. It's absolutely nuts. That I looked it up the other day. We did an episode yesterday, and it was apparently our 241st episode. Sean Rourke and I do the podcast. It's just a ton of fun. It is. Like this will be.
Exactly.
This will be a ton of fun.
NHL Tonight, also a podcast as well. And I believe the number is 90% of podcasts get 500 or fewer listeners. So I'm sure you have a voice. It's a weird thing. Podcasts are oversaturated, yet they're not listened to nearly enough.
No, they are. And by the way, I listened to your podcast, Unscripted, with Adnan Virk and Jason Demers. Now, Jason Demers was on our podcast, and he wanted it to be the Jason Demers and Adnan Virk podcast. But now that I'm with you, it's the reverse. So
it was one of the first things I told Iyer. I said, listen, not to be difficult, my name has to go first.
Got to go first. Yeah.
So we love Demers.
You're going with the A, not the B.
JD did mention he was on your podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to get a home and home done at some point here. But in the meantime, we're all going to get to the hockey news in just a second. Steve Kouleas is going to join us, always entertaining. We'll talk about Connor McDavid passing Jari Kurri. But some sad news from the world of baseball, which reverberates around all the sports, and that's Bob Uecker passing away. And Dan, this was a guy who was not just a baseball guy. He was an entertainer. He was a personality. He was obviously great in the movie Major League, was on Mr. Belvedere, a great master of ceremonies, but like a wonderful figure and really a true humanitarian.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because not being a Milwaukee guy, being from around New Jersey and being a Mets fan, growing up, continued to be a Mets fan. Bob Uecker's introduction to me was more on Mr. Belvedere, to be honest with you, which is hilarious. But he was great on that show. And I mean, Major League is one of my favorite movies of all time. How could it not be? And he is just terrific in that. But, then you get to know him a little bit more, and you get to hear the call. His call was terrific. He had a great call for a baseball game. He really kept you in the game. And he was on Johnny Carson apparently over 100 times.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Which is incredible. Like, if you were to think of, celebrities over the course of time when Johnny Carson was on the air, to be on over 100 times, I don't know that I would think of Bob Uecker, but he went on and he was great. I watched some clips of it earlier today. Just awesome. You go down that rabbit hole now. Obviously.
I would have guessed like Joan Embry, San Diego Zoo, Dr. Joyce Brothers, like somebody of that era. David Brenner, maybe. The fact that Bob Uecker was on there, it's amazing. Also, a hockey time as well. Check out Bob Uecker and the Milwaukee Admirals commercial.
That Lloyd, he told me I was doing such a great job, I deserved a nice long vacation. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. But I didn't want to miss any of the excitement of Admirals hockey at the Bradley Center, so I decided to stay close to home. This one's for Jane.
Lloyd, I thought you said he was going on vacation. You better come and see this.
Hey, Lloyd! Grab a pole!
Admirals hockey, Saturday night at the Bradley Center.
What are we going to do? I got to get practice started.
Tell him the game warden revoked his license.
That is a great find. Bob Uecker giving up the Milwaukee Admirals, a hockey guy as well.
That's great. And look at the jersey.
This is the Brewers patch.
The Brewers patch on the jersey. It's a great jersey. That commercial's hilarious. But I'd never seen that before. Never had seen that commercial before. I mean, again, not being in Milwaukee, why would I see that commercial unless you found it on YouTube somewhere? Yeah. And it's a great find. It's a fantastic, and it's classic. Bob Uecker. It's classic.
That's great Bob Uecker, man. Once again, rest in peace to an absolute icon and a sports legend within the world of sports. All right, time to first things first. Let's get things going here. As far as the hockey talk is concerned, and the incredible Connor McDavid, a 3-point night in a win over Minnesota. It's notable because he passes Jari Kurri on the Edmonton points list. Of course, you think of Kurri as a great goal scorer on Gretzky's wing. That's now second in the all-time points list, 1,044. McDavid has now lit the lamp in back-to-back games, 19 goals this season. He'll soon have his 9th career 20-goal season, matching Leon and Wayne Gretzky for 4th in club history. 4 goals and 12 career shots against the Avs goalie, Mackenzie Blackwood. And by the way, that's the game of the night. Oilers and Avalanche, a potential preview of the 2025 Western Conference Final. We'll talk about that game a little bit later on. But first, Dan, just on McDavid alone, to see that list, Gretz and him and Kurri and then Mark Messier, remarkable.
He's pretty good, right? I mean, he's a pretty good player, but the most remarkable thing that's not there is, so Gretzky has now 625, I think it's 625 more points than McDavid in his Oilers career. Like, that's just, we're talking the Oilers career. Gretzky played 10 more games. Okay? He played 10 more games. Like, that's a different game. Gretzky, in his time with the Oilers, was Now, again, we talked about it off air, right? I'm not a plus-minus guy. I think it matters only when it's just absurd one way or the other. In his Oilers career, Gretzky was plus 553. McDavid's a plus 161, which still is absurd. Like, it's a great number, especially when you can think about the fact that, not for his entire time have the Oilers been a great team. Like, they've just recently become a consistent playoff quality team over the past 5-6 years, right? Like, and Stanley Cup contender, obviously, now, but Gretzky's numbers are it's just outrageous. But McDavid's going to catch him. Short of being traded.
Yes.
Right? Like, short of being traded the way Gretzky was, McDavid's going to catch him. He's going to have the Oilers. And it could happen. I mean, he's 625 away. It could happen in 5 seasons with the way McDavid's going.
Yeah,
right?
I was going to say century mark a little bit plus.
Right, yeah, century mark plus. And he's that good. He floats on the ice. It's just incredible to watch him play. And I know we'll talk about it a little bit later, but just the excitement that I feel right now for McDavid, MacKinnon against each other, and then the excitement I feel for McDavid, MacKinnon playing with each other.
Yes.
At the Four Nations face-off coming up in less than a month from now. That is going to be fantastic because they're completely different players. Like, they're just completely different players, but they produce at the same rate.
You'll be covering the Four Nations.
Yes.
You'll get to see that in Montreal and Boston. I interviewed McDavid earlier this year for Amazon Prime, and I said to him, give me 2 players you can play with anyone in the NHL. And I said, they don't have to be Canadian. He goes, no, let's keep it Canadian. MacKinnon and Crosby. We're going to be able to see that, actually. You're going to be having Montreal or Boston. Here's the thing about McDavid. He's having another great season. And yet I think if you ask some people casually, Hart Trophy race, you're maybe prone to look at MacKinnon. You're prone to look at maybe a Werenski can be in the Hart conversation. A Rantanen, perhaps. A Leon Draisaitl. Even I heard some talk around Connor Hellebuck. He's got more shutouts than losses. Could you maybe have a goalie in the Hart Trophy conversation? First one since Carey Price. I'm not saying McDavid's underrated. Everyone knows he's great. But I feel like this season, Dan, maybe a little bit underappreciated because he's not your immediate top 3 guy.
Well, yeah, but he was injured for a little bit, so he hurt him. He was out for a little bit of time. Not much. I think he just missed a handful of games, but it wasn't crazy. Yeah. And they didn't get off to the best start either. And so they had a little bit of that Stanley Cup hangover, right? So to start the season, he's catching up now, right? I mean, that's the thing. Like, and when McDavid catches up, it's because he goes. It's not just a heater. Like, he'll go on a 40-game heater, right? Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. That's what he does because he's that good and he's that impossible to stop. So the Oilers are they're a pardon the pun, I mean, they're a well-oiled machine right now. They really are. They're playing such good hockey. He and Leon Draisaitl obviously leading the charge. But if you watch them play, like they played against the LA Kings the other night, right? 1-0. They played Kings hockey and beat them at it, right? Yep. So then they play last night against the Wild and they win 5-3. It's more Oilers type. They can win any which way. Yeah. And McDavid is obviously a huge driver of that. But the key thing and the thing that's made them develop into a Stanley Cup contender is he and Draisaitl drive it, but now they've got guys who are not just passengers. Yeah. They're in it now too, as opposed to just watching McDavid and Draisaitl, which I think they were caught doing. It's easy to get caught doing. And now you've got all these other guys, and they've got the depth, and they've got a defined top 6, a defined bottom 6, and it works.
Yeah, it'd be amazing to think about that story. The Oilers lose in 7. McDavid wins Conn Smythe. Yeah. But then they return the Stanley Cup the next year and win it. Like, we're a ways away from that, but we shall see. One thing about McDavid, he's not known necessarily for physicality, and yet some conversation around the rough stuff involving number 97, and this elbow specifically on Johansson. Now, I hadn't seen it first, Dan. I just heard about it, and I see it, and I go, are you kidding? I mean, I don't mean to disparage soccer, but that's a whiff right there. Come on. A little chicken wing elbow.
Listen, he definitely stuck it out there. And here's my reaction to this. Like, we see that play, and we're going to go bonkers over it because it's Connor McDavid, right? And maybe he gets a little leniency for it. I don't know. Maybe because you don't expect it. He's a hockey player. Let's not forget this. He's a terrific player. He's elite at what he does. But at the same time, he's got to have a little bit of a mean streak in him at the same time. I'm not defending what he did. I think that's a chicken wing elbow right to the face, you know? And he's not the first to do it. He won't be the last to do it. We're gonna harp on it today because it's Connor McDavid. You hope that Marcus Johansson's going to be okay, right? Yeah. I mean, I know he's going to be out for a little bit, and even McDavid said that. Like, I'm just trying to get through there. I'm not trying to do anything. I'm certainly not intending to hurt anybody, and I don't think he is. I don't think he goes into that play, turns there, and sticks his elbow out and saying, yeah, I'm going to get this guy. No, I don't think he does that, but he stuck his elbow out.
Correct.
Let's be honest. He did it.
Yeah, I guess he's going to pay the consequences if there is going to be any.
I don't think so.
Not to the film, right?
Nothing.
That'd be a little bit excessive.
But you know what it'll do is, okay, Connor's done that now. Let's keep an eye on it, right?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And I don't this is not who he is. He's not that player. He's not that type of player. There's very few guys in the league who are that type of player right now, I think. And this is certainly Connor McDavid is not one of those guys, but it happened.
Yep.
It happened. You can't watch that and say that's not a little bit of a chicken wing elbow right to the guy's chops.
Right. So now we know that moving forward. Meantime, Carolina Hurricanes lose to Buffalo Sabres. And the Hurricanes are an interesting team because, at least on paper, you say, well, they're one of hockey's best teams, quite frankly. They're third right now in the Metropolitan Division. They're only 2 points back of the New Jersey Devils. They're very analytics-based. They've got a great offensive core, excellent coach, obviously, in Rod Brind'Amour. And yet, here's the perplexing question. And I don't need to be an analytics wizard to figure this out. Why is a team who's in the playoffs so bad on the road? At home in Raleigh, they're 17-5-1. On the road, they're 9-11-2. Dan Rosen's a lot smarter than me, so maybe he can figure this out for you. How can a team have this kind of disparity when you're a playoff team?
Yeah, it's a disparity. The road's hard. The road's hard in the National Hockey League, and let's be honest here. They're at a 454 points percentage on the road right now. They're 760 at home.
Right.
If you play 760, let's just call it 750 at home, and 500 on the road, you're a good playoff team, right? You're a playoff team.
Yeah, you can be at least 500.
You can be a 500 points percentage team on the road if you're 750 at home, and they've made that home ice advantage. It's a big home ice advantage. I've been there for playoff games. It is loud. It gets packed. Those fans in Raleigh are terrific. They've really made it a hockey market. It's a great arena. It's a big home ice advantage for them. I've been there for it.
Yeah.
They need to get a little bit better on the road. There's no question about it. But you know what? It's not like they're terrible on the road. They're a -5 goal differential on the road. It's not that bad, okay? They need to score a little bit more. And I think where this comes is the game breaker, right? So when they don't have one.
They don't have that A-plus player.
They don't have one. We thought Marty Natchez was going to be that, right? Marty Natchez got
at one point.
And Marty Natchez got off to this amazing start, right? Well, he's cooled. I think he's got like 7 points in the last 14 games. Game breakers don't cool, okay? We want to be a game like McDavid, MacKinnon. That's the elite. That's the top end of it, right?
Yep.
But game breakers don't necessarily cool for 14, 15 game stretches. Natchez, he got a goal last night. He's got 3 points in the last 2. Maybe he's coming along. They haven't had that, and that is when your guys are not feeling it. It's that trip to Buffalo, you know, in the middle of the week, and it's an early start time, and you're not feeling it. Your game breaker takes over. Well, they don't have that, and they haven't had that under Rod Brind'Amour, which is why you talked about they're an analytics-based team.
Yep.
They're so well coached, all of these things. They're defensively so good. They have the puck all the time. They're not in their defensive zone that often. Their goaltending holds up. You know, Freddie Anderson, you know, being out, he's always hurt, but their goaltending is held up. They don't have a game breaker. They tried to, you know, Jake Gensel got him last year.
Yeah.
Got to the second round. Played well, but he was, you know, didn't game. He isn't even a game breaker. Kucherov's the game breaker on the Tampa Bay Lightning, right? Crosby was on the, you know, when he was with Gensel. So that's the one thing that's missing.
Canes back at home tomorrow against Vegas, and I'm with you. My whole thing with Carolina, I'm like, they're a B-plus team. Like, they never elevate. And come playoff time,
Gotta
you
elevate.
can figure out you don't elevate to get to the next level. All right, busy schedule taking place in the National Hockey League on Thursday, including the Sheldon Keefe Bowl. We'll get into that in just a second. Devils and the Leafs, also the Capitals and the Senators. Washington right now has the most points in the Eastern Conference. 63 right now as they face an Ottawa team that's in the mix for the playoffs. Ducks, Lightning as well. Red Wings and Panthers. Sharks and Blue Jackets. The Flyers and the Islanders out in Long Island. And the Flames and the Blues, as Calgary right now has that second wild card spot. Also the Blackhawks and Predators, two teams that have really been struggling. Canadiens and the Stars. Montreal now making a push for their first playoff spot in 4 years. The Kraken and the Jets, as Winnipeg right now has the most points in the Western Conference with 63. The Rangers in Utah. New York still needs to get it going. Oilers and Avalanche, obviously the game of the night. MacKinnon, McDavid, highlight it, circle it, italicize it. And the Kings and the Canucks also taking place at 10 o'clock Eastern. So let's get into the Devils and the Leafs, as I called it, the Sheldon Keefe Bowl. Sometimes things can work out for both teams. Sheldon Keefe, if you've seen enough film noir, you know he had to be the fall guy. He had to walk the plank for this team. Well, no problem. He goes to New Jersey, and they're having a terrific team. They're second right now in the Metropolitan Division, 6 points back of Washington. They score pretty much on the same pace as Toronto. They're better defensively. Power play's immeasurably better, and the penalty kill is basically a wash. It's interesting when Keefe was there, Chris Johnson drawing a big crowd in his first return to Toronto as the New Jersey Devils head coach. I don't know if it was fair or not, but Sheldon Keefe got a lot of heat when things didn't work out. And again, if you had a pie chart, Dan, you go, okay, I'll blame a little bit of Marner, I'll blame a little bit of Brendan Shannon, a little bit of Keefe. Keefe ends up being the guy. Dubas maybe obviously got some heat in the past, but I think it's a good story for Sheldon Keefe to go. Things did not work out in Toronto, but clearly he's a good coach. New Jersey is a team that has elevated from a team with promise to like a legit playoff team this season.
Well, I mean, listen, they made the playoffs 5 seasons in a row with Sheldon Keefe as the coach, right? So that's pretty good, right? He just couldn't get him over the hump, but I honestly put that more on the players than I do on Sheldon Keefe. You're watching Sheldon Keefe now with the New Jersey Devils, right? And this team is a vastly improved team. Now, of course, goaltending makes the biggest difference. And, you know, in fairness to Sheldon Keefe, he didn't have Jacob Markstrom in net in Toronto, right? It didn't exist for him there.
Yeah.
He was still a good coach, and he got a lot out of those players, but those players never came together to band together in the playoffs for him, and that's why he's in New Jersey now and not still in Toronto.
Yeah.
Difference like he was a long tenure coach there in Toronto. John Cooper's a long tenure coach in Tampa. Why? The players band together and they're great in the playoffs, right? And they've won a couple of Stanley Cups and all that stuff. But Sheldon Keefe's a good coach, and you're seeing the difference that he's making in New Jersey right now. They're defensively really, really good. Like, at times I look at them and I'm like, my goodness, they're defending like the 95 Devils, right?
Is that Jacques Lemaire behind the bench?
But they're scoring much more, and they're far more offensive. They are such a fun team to watch. You know, you watch their games against like Carolina or Florida, which, you know, I mean, they could face Carolina in the playoffs. Florida is a team that they would love to face in the playoffs if they get that far, right? All that stuff. Yeah. They can play that mean streak type game. They can play a freewheeling type game. They can keep it low scoring. There's a lot of good in New Jersey right now, and Sheldon Keefe's at front and center of it. So clearly, you know what he wants tonight, right? You know he wants tonight. He wants to go into that building tonight, and he wants to stick it to those Leafs because this was a big job for him. He was in Toronto for about 9 years, almost a decade. He was in Toronto with the Marlies, took over there, coached the team, was a playoff coach there for years, and now Craig Berube took over, and Craig Berube's looked at as the guy like, oh, he's the one that's going to get him.
Yeah, Chief can get it done. He's won a cup
before. Get it done, right?
Yep.
And Chief's doing a great job, no question about it. They're far more. They are a better defensive team. I think the Maple Leafs, although the last couple of games have not been very good, they've sacrificed a little offense in their last couple of games. But Chief is, you know, a structure guy, all that stuff, and the players have bought in. They still got it. It doesn't matter. Fast forward, get me to April. Get me to April and see what the Maple Leafs do.
Tough stretch right now for them. They're trying to snap a season-long 3-game losing streak. They have not lost 4+ in regulation since a 5-game streak from November of 2020, which was only ended once Babcock was fired and Keefe took over as the head coach. John Tavares has been an incredible story, Dan. I think he's playing his best hockey in 5 years, so this is not good news from the Leafs. He's been placed on IR, lower body injury. Fraser Minton is really called from the Marlies. Listen, other guys can get it done, but even Craig Berube himself called it bad luck. And considering Tavares' injury, the Leafs could look to move sooner rather than later in the trade market. They're already in search of a defensively responsible center to play on the third line behind Austin Matthews and Tavares. That's according to their GM, Brad Treliving. So Tree's been clear about the fact they want to do something. And now with Tavares out, maybe something will happen for a team that has aspirations of going deep. It's a tough break for Tavares.
It's a tough break for Tavares. It's a tough break for the Leafs. You know, you watch that, and I actually, it's encouraging that he's able to go off on his own.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the encouraging part. But week to week, you never want to hear week to week. Week to week is not an encouraging. Day to day, oh, I'll take day to day. Give me day to day. We're all day to day, right? Week to week, not so much. Yeah. And it's Chris Tanev there that tangles up with him. Obviously, there's nothing there. I mean, you know, Tanev's, you know, might blame himself, but he's not at fault. He doesn't do anything there. It's just, it's an unfortunate fall. It's an unfortunate break there for the Maple Leafs. But listen, they played 15 games this year without Austin Matthews.
True.
And they won 10 of those games. And John Tavares was really good in those games. Okay, John Tavares, I think in those 15 games without Austin Matthews had 16 points, 8 goals, 8 assists. Now Austin Matthews is playing. He looks better, right? So Austin Matthews better step up and take over some of the offense that they lose in John Tavares, right? Hey, give and get a little, right? Yeah. That's the way it goes. But they can win. The point is that
they can win without.
They can win without Tavares. If they can win 10 out of 15 games without Austin Matthews, they can win without John Tavares.
One concern is Willie Nylander, their leading goal scorer. 1 goal his last 11 games, so he's going to pick it up. And one other thought on Keefe. He had high-end offensive talent in Toronto with the likes of Matthews, Marner, and now he's got a high-end offensive talent there with Hughes and Heath.
Yes.
So clearly he's a coach that you give him talent, he knows how to get those guys to rise.
Yeah, he does. And what he's also got in New Jersey is he's got an enormous back end. Right? I mean, look at these guys on the back end, right? I think Luke Hughes might be the smallest of them, and he's a big dude, okay? And he's still raw and young and still growing. But Dougie Hamilton, Kovacevic, Siegenthaler back there, Pesce, Dillon, and Hughes. Like, this is a big defense. How do you win in the National Hockey League in the playoffs? You have to have a big mobile defense. Florida, Vegas. Just look at the last two, right? Look at the last two. big mobile defense, get the puck out, doesn't spend a lot of time there. The Devils have that, and they have the goaltending. Like I said, they're a real dangerous team. He's a very good coach, too. So he has, like you said, Hughes, Hischier, Bratt. We all sleep on Jesper Bratt for some reason. And and I'm the same, right? The first guys that come to mind with the Devils are, Hughes and Hischier. Jesper Bratt's a terrific player.
Yeah.
He really is electric, too. Another one going to the Four Nations face-off, by the way, representing Sweden. So they're a good team. He's a good coach. They're going to be very dangerous in the playoffs. In an Eastern Conference where it doesn't seem like anyone is separating themselves in an Eastern Conference, the Devils are a team that could.
I agree. They could definitely make a surprise and make a deep run. Good news for our buddy Ken Danico. In the meantime, this day in hockey history, Alexander Ovechkin is still continuing his pursuit of Wayne Gretzky's all-time goal record. And this is one of the all-time goals from Ovi. This day in history, January 16th, 06, against the Phoenix Coyotes. I'm just shocked, and as he goes down there, he's able to get enough on the shot. Like, it's one thing to be able to say, oh, he went down and he kind of just shoveled it. No, like, he's got enough to actually score that goal. The wherewithal, the creativity, the ingenuity, the strength, that's Ovi at his best. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, I mean, where's Bush on this play? Come on. And look at Gretzky's reaction there.
Yeah, Gretzky's coach, yes.
Man, right? Like, look at that. Where's Bush? Come on. I've given Bush a little bit on that one, too. But hey, listen, it's an iconic goal. Yeah. You know what that was? It was his 32nd goal. That was his 32nd goal that he's ever scored. And it was his 44th game, and now he's got 873 goals, and it's on 1,454 games. So, yeah, and I think it's just interesting. Like, that is one of his most iconic goals, maybe his most iconic goal because of the highlight of it, right? So early in his career, and Gretzky was the coach.
That's pretty
but
amazing.
Where's Bush?
Yeah, I'm with you. I love Bush, but now you see it again, like, really? Okay. 21 goals back at Gretzky's record. We're just getting warmed up here on NHL Tonight First. If we come back, Dan's here. It's going to be great because he's got the power rankings, the Super 16 right now. Where will the Washington Capitals fall on that list? Most points in the Eastern Conference? Are they number 1, 2, 3? You'll find out right after this. It is time now for the Super 16 presented by Enterprise, as Dan will give us the best right now in the game. Who gets more flack for this? You on your list or Brian Boucher in the goal we just showed?
Me. When it's EJ sitting in that chair, my goodness. This is, it's different. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I love it. Exactly. I'm accommodating. I'm happy to have you.
It's a pleasure to do this without EJ. Might as well get started, right?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, 16 through 13.
Minus the browbeating of EJ Hradek. Okay.
Yeah, the Ottawa Senators in there at 16. They've won 3 straight since losing 4 in a row. They beat Dallas. Maryland, the goalie.
Let's say, Omar goes out of Maryland has been unbelievable.
He's just doing his job.
He's been great.
He's just doing his job, right? Columbus Blue Jackets, best story going in sports. I think they are the best story going in sports. And they've won 5 straight games, 9-2-1 since December 19th. So they got to, they creep up a little bit. Maybe I could have even had them a little higher, but the Tampa Bay Lightning with the body of work that they have, and they're 3-1-1 in their last 5 games after an 0-3 California trip. But they're the Lightning, the body of work, so I keep them there. The Montreal Canadiens, listen, Montreal Canadiens, 4-0-1 in their past 5, okay? They are 7-1-1 in their past 9, 10-2-1 in their past 13. And by the way, they're not just winning. We talk about Carolina, right? They're 7-2 in this stretch, in that 13-game stretch, 7-2 on the road. So the Montreal Canadiens.
Let's say the Habs have not made the playoffs in 3 years. It's been a great story. They look dead and buried early December. Now, like Nosferatu, they've come back from the dead. Do you think ultimately they can be a playoff team?
I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things. You got to prove it, right? Like one of these teams is going to have to make it in the East.
It's a Montreal, it's an Ottawa, it's a Columbus.
The 2 of them are going to have to make it because Boston's not a sure thing either, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that are not sure things. Montreal could. The goaltending has to hold up. Yeah. They got to be able to score enough. I like the way they're playing. And again, like I talked about before with the Canucks, right? It's not a. Well, I didn't talk about it before, but the Canucks, you'll talk about it soon. Yeah. Not a small sample size. Yeah. Right? It's a 13-game sample size. It's not small.
Lining on the power play. He's definitely fun to watch. Yeah. All right, keep the list.
All right, here we go. 12 is the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Leafs are not a top 10 team.
No, they dropped. And a big drop for the Maple Leafs.
Dude, that's big.
Now. Yeah, it's a big drop. Well, they lost 3 in a row. I don't like the way they're playing right now. They've only got 4 goals in those 3 games, so they drop. The Carolina Hurricanes are in. They stay in at number 11. I know they lost to Buffalo. They did lose in overtime to Anaheim, but before that, they beat Vancouver. They beat Toronto. Listen, the Carolina Hurricanes are a consistently good team. The Florida Panthers stay right there at number 10. Again, the Florida Panthers, they're better than this. They just haven't hit their stride. They beat New Jersey in a shootout. Remember, earlier in the season, they lost twice to New Jersey at home. So that's why you don't see the Devils here in the top 8. But they, listen, they're 4-5-1 in their past 10, but they're the Florida Panthers, defending Stanley Cup champs, not worried about them. And the LA Kings, a slight drop. They lose 1-0 to Edmonton and 2-1 to Calgary. With the Kings, it's 8 goals in their last 5 games. So, and listen, they're 3-2 in those games, so good for them.
Yeah.
But they got to be able to score a little bit more.
A thought on the Florida Panthers, clearly missing Aaron Ekblad. Like, you can see the difference he has not on that team, and even playing down the opposition a little bit. Like, that loss against the Flyers was atypical.
It is, and I also think it's sometimes when you win the Stanley Cup, it's hard to get up for all 82 games. And they know they're going to be there at the end. They know they're going to be playing in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they're trying to get there. And I wouldn't even be surprised. They have 8 players going to the Four Nations face-off. I wouldn't be surprised. They're not trying to lose games, but I wouldn't be surprised if they are trying to, conserve some energy at the same time, too.
Spencer Knight been a great story for them.
Yep.
All right, keep it going.
All right, here we go. 8 New Jersey Devils. They move up 2-0-2 in their last 4. They've scored. Their defense and goaltending is strong. Like the Devils a lot. The Minnesota Wild drop, and EJ was giving me so much grief for having the Wild at 3.
Wow.
And he probably would give me grief for even having them at 7. But, I mean, we're talking about a team that's playing without Kirill Kaprizov, without Brock Faber, Jared Spurgeon, Jonas Brodin. Injuries are catching up to them. The 3 teams they lose to in the last 4 games are Colorado, Vegas, and Edmonton. Those are good teams, okay? So the Wild drop. The Dallas Stars, they are in there. The Dallas Stars, 9-1-1 since December 23rd. Yeah, I like the Dallas Stars a lot. At Colorado on Saturday, and then you got the Avalanche. They drop a little bit, 2-2 in their past 4. Had to come back against the Rangers to get that win, but they did. This is a really good team. Excited about
Surprised the Stars that low. You don't have them as a top 4 team.
No, because listen, the top 4. Wait till you see the top 4.
Oh my God, it's fight night.
Oh no!
EJ Hradek, yes, off the top rope.
This was
EJ Michigan, yes, go ahead.
This was so close to being fun.
Yeah. I heard you, Rosen. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. It's nice to be unchecked, isn't it?
All right, it is nice to be unchecked. We're having a quiet, nice conversation here.
To be the fountain of misinformation that you almost certainly always are, and have Adnan, who is very kind, sitting there and just, he's getting his little movie references, Nosferatu, Back from the Dead. I was on that.
Okay, thanks,
I'm on you. Okay. I'm on you on that. Like Dan is a complete unknown. Did you get that one in?
Oh, there you go. That's very good. Timothy Chalamet, very good.
And then you got St. Dan Rosen. St. Dan. Oh, Minnesota. They got so many injuries.
Brock Faber. Come
on. They're losing 4. He wrote his material, by the way.
It's unbelievable.
This is clearly a script.
Off the top.
You don't feel bad for other teams that have injuries. They have injuries. You got to deal with that.
There's 7. They dropped them. I dropped them 4 spots. I thought you'd be happy with that.
Why not 10? They're struggling.
They're struggling.
The struggling group right now. I mean, I like
10? Just arbitrarily putting them at 10.
You had the wherewithal to put the Canadians in there. I mean, that is definitely something I'm shocked that you even know that the Canadians are playing well.
Oh, man.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I mean, I tune into this whole thing, and you're talking about the Devils before. I guess they're playing the Leafs tonight. You're talking about somebody on the Devils having an enormous back end. I don't know what the heck's going on there.
No, he's saying you have a big back in the defense.
Big guys. Big, physically big.
Very strange stuff going on in there today. Very strange.
Each leaves, the inmates are running the asylum.
I didn't know this was coming. Yes. All right, but here's what I've been dying to say this, and I don't know if it'll work. I've been waiting to say this for the longest time because it's never happened where I've been here and he's been remote.
You want to cut
his mic?
No, you can't do that. Hey, before you do, you're coming to the hotel in Michigan right now.
I have it in my contract. My mic cannot be cut.
All right, fine.
There you go.
Are we going to do the top 4?
Prospects.
All right, let's do the top 4.
Can't be any worse than the first one.
All right, the Vegas Golden Knights dropped from 1. They've lost a couple of games. The Islanders, the Rangers, Nashville, 3 teams not in a playoff spot. They beat the Wild. Everybody beats the Wild, according to EJ. The Edmonton Oilers, number 3. Big jump.
With all the injuries.
Big jump for the Edmonton Oilers, who, by the way, EJ gave me a lot of grief on last week because I had them at 9. Now they're at 3. I'm just looking to make EJ happy.
Respect for the Oilers, okay.
So they're rolling along. They can win any which way. The Winnipeg Jets, 3-1 in their past 4. Again, another team solid all the way through. They got a nice win against Colorado. And the Washington Capitals, they have points in every game in this month. They're 5-0-3 in an 8-game point streak, 8-2-3 since December 20th. They keep getting it done. They keep, they're a team. I think for a while there we were wondering, like, are the wheels going to fall off? What's going to happen? But no, this is a legit team. They're a legit Stanley Cup contender. So they are 1 this week.
All right,
Well, I mean, first of all, the Golden Knights, right? I love the Golden Knights, so I don't want to, beat them up. I like them. I think they have a chance to win the cup. But you mean to tell me, Dan?
Yeah, I do.
That the struggling Rangers and the vagabond Islanders come to town and beat you, and you still have them at 4? Well, you just talked about Dallas 9-1, and Colorado playing well. These guys are playing well. And you have Vegas, who just lost to 2 terrible or struggling teams, I should say, that are not playing well. Rangers have been a little better lately. How do you have them still at 4? And Edmonton should be at least 2. At least 2. And all right, I'll step back.
Yeah, take over your segment.
Right, I'm trying here. Yeah. You know what? Because I had Vegas at 1 last week. How can I drop them to like 7 or 6? Like, if I thought they were the best team in the league 7 days ago, how can I think that they're the 6th or 7th best team in the league right now? Yeah. You know what? They are a terrific hockey team, and they are 100% a top 4 team. Does that mean they're going to be in the top 4 the rest of the way? No, because they've got to play their way. Listen, if they lose a couple more, they'll drop out of that spot. But I think they're a great team, and I think they're better than Dallas, and I think they're a better team than Colorado. They've lost a couple of games. They were at 1. They dropped 3. They dropped to 4.
Yeah.
You don't give me any credit for the Edmonton Oilers. You say, they're at 3. They should be at 2.
They should at least be at 2. Come on. They've been playing really well since the middle of November.
So who are they at 2? So who's 1? Who's 1 in your mind?
Washington would have to be 1.
So Winnipeg's 3?
So
Winnipeg's 3?
Winnipeg would be 3 or lower. Here's the thing with Winnipeg. Here's the thing with Winnipeg. They started the season with, what were they, 15-0? 15-0?
They were great.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and that was unbelievable. No question, number 1. Since then, they've been a little better than 500. The Oilers, in that same stretch, have lost like 3 games. So, like, for me, and I know you say, well, I had them here last week, couldn't I? Yeah. Your lists are all over the place. There's no logic to your list. Don't try to tell the viewer I couldn't do that now because I didn't do it here. You have no rhyme or reason to anything you do. You can do anything you want.
So, hold on a sec. So, you're saying Winnipeg's start doesn't matter?
It does matter, but I would say Edmonton's last 25 games puts them over them right now.
Little recency bias here. By the way,
1 spot.
EJ, All-American game tonight. Look forward to that, by the way. Give us a quick plug. Tonight, 7 Eastern, Plymouth, Michigan. You got the game.
Yes, I do. I'll be there with Tony Granato and Tony Luffbit and Steve Conroy and JP Morosi. And,
nice.
It's a great game because it's all the young kids that are at the National Development Program, kids that are playing the USHL. A lot of these guys, most of them are draft eligible. Almost all of them are draft eligible players. So you get to know them now. Young guy like Will Moore, for example, will probably be a top 15 pick. You get to know them now. 3 years from now, 2 years from now, next year, maybe they're in the World Juniors. And then there are a couple of years from now, you're on their team, or you're watching them play in the National Hockey League. So a lot of good young players.
EJ Hradek, EJ Hradek playing the role of the brutalist tonight.
Cut the mic.
NHL Network.
Cut it.
Another game, everybody. He cut his mic. Dan got his favorite swish. All right, still to come here on the NHL Tonight first shift. The great Steve Kouleas, McDavid versus MacKinnon, the matchup of the year. It's next.
Super 16 is presented by Enterprise. We're here to keep you moving forward, whether it's around the corner or around the world. Official partner of the NHL.
We continue right now here at NHL Tonight first shift. And how about this tweet here from NHL PR? That's right, McDavid versus MacKinnon. It sells itself. Tonight, 9:30 Eastern, arguably the 2 biggest stars in the sport, Oilers versus Avalanche. And when it comes to stars in the sport, how can you top Stevie K? The one and only. You can always hear him on SiriusXM. Does a phenomenal job. NHL Network Radio. Cooley, we're going to get into the hockey. I want to talk Bob Uecker with you at the end, RIP. But first off, McDavid versus MacKinnon. Are these the 2 greatest stars in the sport right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for having me back, Dan. Good to see you. It's going to be fun watching them play together, I guess, on the power play in a month from now, knock on wood. But it's look, we have 1,312 games in the regular season. Some are sexier than others. Like the playoffs are on for a lot of teams, Calgary, Vancouver, and all those teams stuck in quicksand in the Eastern Conference. But this is one of the games you say to yourself, you want 6-5, you want Canada Cup, you want offense. Who cares who wins if you're a third party? You want to see dazzle, pizzazz, Art Ross, Hart Trophy, and all that stuff. And it's just like, enjoy the moment. Like if you're an Oiler fan, it doesn't last forever. You're lucky you've gone through Gretzky and Curry and Coffey and McDavid and everything else. And the same thing with Sakic and Forsberg and MacKinnon and Makar. Enjoy it because the wheel spins. You're at the top, and then you're back at the bottom. So enjoy. Yeah, like the song says, the wheel will turn. Enjoy nights like tonight.
Listen, Kouleas, I'm totally in agreement with you here, but it's funny. We talk about McDavid and MacKinnon, right? And 100%, that's the marquee, right? That's what's up on the marquee. Draisaitl and Rantanen, how about those two guys too, right? I mean, not too shabby themselves.
Oh, absolutely. And tonight with the Middlestat situation and 1 goal and 20-plus games, 8 points, minus 16. Rantanen, who's normally a winger, might play in the middle. McDavid and Draisaitl together, the nuclear option, are separated. We always talk about that. So that's the matchup within the matchup, and that's tier 2. Mostly that's the marquee. That's not off Broadway. We're talking about, the other 3 or 4, second and third, fourth best players in the NHL. So I love it. It's great. Don't give me 1-0. Don't give me 1-0. Let's have a 6-5 game tonight.
So if McDavid and MacKinnon is Hamilton, then you're telling me that Rantanen and Draisaitl is Moulin Rouge. Still on Broadway, still a great show. It should be a showstopper. We're at the midseason mark right now, Kouleas, and it's interesting. You look at disappointing players, and some names that come to mind are Mika Zibanejad and pretty much most of the New York Rangers roster. Other guys have been beaten up. Skinner's a guy who's been beaten up, but you believe he's turned the corner playing better for Edmonton. What are you seeing in a Stuart Skinner?
First of all, I think he wishes the season started on November the 1st because his Octobers are like Ottawa's. Terrible. The numbers have improved. And if you take away, and you're not allowed to, but I'd rather be on a trend where the numbers are improving and you're going to give me Stanley Cup winning goaltending. Look at the first 7. Look at the last 22. The save percentage in January, he's .937 to get to the numbers you're looking at here. And December's where he really found his game. And look, he's not the most acrobatic. He's not Carey Price in the net. He's got to use his size. I think what happens at times is he's slow to react. Hockey sense matters when he's moving right to left or left to right. And he loses focus sometimes and allows the odd stinker. That's going to hurt your save percentage. And I think he's learned a lot from going to the Stanley Cup final. Look, he's the guy. They're not getting any. Grant Fear's not coming in. They might improve the backup goalie, but it's Skinner. He doesn't have to win all 16 games in the playoffs, but if there's a stretch where he comes out, somebody else goes in, it's Pickard, or if they get Cam Talbot. But he's the guy right now. So why not look at those numbers and a reason to smile if you're an Oiler fan?
Well, yeah, 100% his numbers since November 1st have been terrific. The Oilers were slow starters, too. So, Kouleas, I'm wondering, which came first? Chicken egg here, right? Was it Skinner's goaltending that disabled the Oilers, if you will, at the start of the season? Or was it the Oilers' team play that sort of disabled Skinner at the start of the season? And now you look at the Oilers, the way they're playing in front of him, they've been arguably the best team, one of the best teams in front of their goaltender in the last month and a half, 2 months, maybe even more. And look at Skinner's numbers have been terrific, but is it also the confidence that they have in Skinner? So which came first, do you think?
I think they were in a Florida funk.
Yeah.
I think that funk lasted a long time. And I think they were in it, how close they were. And I think they also learned the long game. We've talked about everything from the extra flight when you don't have home ice advantage in a series that has that kind of travel. And the last 2 years, they've been burning the candle at both ends just to 2 years ago not catch Vegas. And last year, the horrific 3-9-1 start to then make up points later in the year. This year's start wasn't as bad. When they got over that funk, I even see now almost like a tennis player. If you're down 5-1 in the second set, you're not chasing every point. Like McDavid isn't. They're picking their spots. They've learned from losing, and I think that was a factor at the beginning of the year that don't get off to the start like last year, but mentally they weren't there. And now that they found that long game, that's what I think they're playing now, and pacing themselves and learning you can't play all 82 games like it's game 7 every night. That was the slow start, and I think, Dan, they've learned from that.
Love the tennis reference. Aussie Open ongoing right now. Felix Auger-Aliassime, let's go Canada. In the meantime, the Kings and the Canucks are taking place tonight. Cooley, LA's been a great story. I think Carberry, Coach of the Year, maybe Dean Evison, but I love what Jim Hiller's done with Los Angeles. And how about this stat? They've allowed 5 goals over the last 5 games, and they're 2.41 goals against. That leads the National Hockey League. Unfortunately, it could be Kings-Oilers again first round. We know Edmonton's won that 3 straight years, but how about the underrated LA Kings?
Yeah, and when you look at these numbers, you say to yourself, okay, that's good. This is a team that doesn't score a lot, under 3, 18th in the league. But you mentioned the defensive numbers, the analytics, them in Carolina, number 1, goals against, number 1. This is all without Drew Doughty, and that's one of the reasons the power play is at the bottom of the NHL. If they improve with Doughty 5-on-4, and if they can get their road numbers up, like they're only a 500 team on the road and they're one of the best teams at home in the NHL, I got to think they'll be better on the road and better on the power play in the second half of the season. And that could bode well for if they do play Edmonton. They got home ice in the 2-3. The Oilers are chasing down Vegas. This is sexy. We might have Carolina, New Jersey. We might have Edmonton and LA. If LA wins the division, Vegas, Edmonton. Oh boy, that's why finishing first for you kids out there does matter, to avoid playing difficult matchups in all 4 rounds. If they can be a little easier playing a wild card team, I'd rather play Calgary or Vancouver than the teams I just mentioned right there.
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing about the Kings is, though, you need to score in the West because the West is mean, right? It's a meat grinder. It's mean. You have to be able to score. They've only got 8 goals in those 5 games, right? So they have to be able to score, and they need it. And they're doing it without Doughty, which is great. But let's flip it. Look at the Vancouver Canucks, Cooley, right? So 3 wins in their last 13 games. And that's not a small sample size. 13 games is a decent sample size. 3 wins in those games. They're getting points because they've got 5 overtime or shootout losses, 3, 5, and 5. But you look at them, they're out of a playoff spot today. There's a lot going on there. What's your take on where Vancouver is right now? Is this a playoff team?
It's 50-50. It's a Flames-Canucks race. That's what we have. And the Flames better, you don't go to St. Louis and play the Cardinals in a 2-game series and lose both games. So Calgary's lost 5 in a row to St. Louis. They better win. And if they win and the Canucks stumble, that gap gets even bigger. There's everything that went right last year for Rick Tocchet is going wrong this year. I mean, Demko, 883 on the season. In the last 6 games that you mentioned, Dan, they've won once. They've scored 9, given up 18, 22 in offense, 23 in goals against. They got the Miller Pedersen thing hanging over their head. Tonight, it'll be DeBrusk playing with Besser and Pedersen. Miller on the second line with Connor Garland. They're trying to mix things up. It's been Murphy's Law. It's a soap opera. Are they going to trade one of those 2 guys? It was almost too good last year. And Johnny Drama, too much soap opera this year. The math says it's 50-50 between Calgary and Vancouver. They're kind of lucky with the numbers. You also said 3 wins in 13, that they're here and there's not other chasers. In the East, there's a lot of chasers. In the West, I think it's only really Calgary. We've got 8 of the 9 that we're looking at right now. So we got a 2-horse race, and I'm worried. I'm worried about Demko, and I'm worried about them not fixing this situation. Will they have the you-know-what to make a deal involving 40 or number 9, Pedersen or Miller? I don't see it happening until the offseason, so the Canucks might waste this season if they miss the playoffs.
Over the last 30 days, the Canucks, 423 points percentage, 5th, the worst in the NHL in that span, 2.15 goals per game. That's the worst right now in hockey. And yet, Cooley, would you still have Quinn Hughes in the Norris Trophy conversation?
Absolutely. I think Werenski's leading it right now. No shot to Makar. And, I mean, Quinn Hughes, the way he controls the game, and Quinn Hughes light, Lane Hudson to Montreal. If the Habs get in, there's your Calder winner in the East. And right now, what Werenski's doing on a worse team. Yeah. On a worse team, and the goal, he doesn't have a car to get the puck to, or MacKinnon to get the puck to. So this is special. It's fun. And the heart kind of says, I'd like Columbus to get in, but Hughes right now probably 3rd in that kind of voting. Good for Werenski. And number 8 in Colorado's not done yet. There's a lot of runway. They can't keep getting wins 6-on-5, scoring goals with the net empty, and then it's heart attack hockey. It's Brian Sipe and the Cleveland Browns of the early 1980s, I think.
Speaking of the 1980s, you and I love 80s baseball, and if you love baseball, you know the name Bob Uecker. Unfortunately, passed away today. I've been saying all day, Cooley, he was a guy that was known for being funny and entertaining, but was a legit great baseball guy. If you grew up in Wisconsin, Bob Uecker is the sound of summer for you. Your favorite Uecker moment?
Well, I met him as a young kid. Baseball was really big in my life. You know, I picked up Bob Costas from the airport. I was there when Jose Canseco hit the moon on that monster shot in '89. Yeah, off Mike Flanagan, which I told Bob they should take him out of the game. And he went, and then he looked at me and said, "Kid, you're right. You're a hockey guy, but you know something about baseball, right?" So Jim Palmer was there. Cooley, we're going to go down, and then Jim Palmer does the old throw the ball to me, autograph, and then Bob Uecker was just, whatever you got, kid, give me the stats, give me this calculator, giving him information. A pleasure to work with Ernie Hartwell, Bob Uecker, and everything else. But I'll tell you this much: one of the just nicest human beings I've ever met. And you're right. He kind of acted like he wasn't any good. Yeah. For you kids out there, read the almanac. Read that red or green book, American League, National League. He was great, and we will miss him. 90. We'd all take getting to 90, right, gentlemen?
By the way, I think the Costa story told me he signed the ball. He said, didn't he say, Steve, I'll see you in the booth one day? Am I right?
Yeah, he said, good luck in the booth,
good
Bob Costas. Yeah, good luck in the It's actually over there. It's right there.
You're going to get it down next time. I'm going to see the baseball. Good luck in the booth, Bob Costas.
Yeah. And the worst kept secret, I caught Dave Winfield's bat at Yankee Stadium. If you know that story. So there you go. Almost got on Letterman, but I had to go home.
What?
Oh, my God. You're going to tell that story now.
What?
Come on.
It's 1992. There's nobody there. I go to buy tickets off a scalper. He undersells himself. We're right behind the Blue Jays dugout. My buddy says, when it gets wet, Dave loses his bat a lot. Whoa, 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 whoa. Bang. Landed beside me. I caught it with another guy, and I said, I'll split it with you. Yeah, he let go. I got it and gave it back to Dave on top of the Yankee dugout, pointed to center field like Babe Ruth, and swung. And then the security guards talked to me and said, you're lucky it wasn't a night game, or you have no idea what we do to you.
Oh, my God.
Wait, you gave it back?
He gave me, he wanted his real bat back, and he gave me a practice bat. Okay. Like a Cooper bat, by the way, when Cooper was big into baseball.
Right. Dave Winfield, the Hall of Famer. That is the ultimate walk-off from Steve Kouleas. Incredible story, even for me, and I've known Cooley forever. Good luck on the show. Good luck on the booth, Steve. You're the best.
Thank you very much. Devils are due. They win on Sheldon Keefe's return.
Yeah, Sheldon Keefe Bowl. Okay, I can't wait. This is great. Awesome. Great stuff there from Steve Kouleas. Thanks, Cooley. Still to come here, NHL Tonight, first shift. When we come back, the Stadium Series uniforms. That's right, me and Dan weigh in as fashionistas can. What do we think of the threads? We'll tell you when we come back.
From live play-by-play to your favorite game day anthems and the biggest sports podcasts in the world, the iHeartRadio app lets you take it all with you wherever you go. Download the free iHeartRadio app today.
All right, Stadium Series, and they're unveiling the unis right now. Here's what it looks like. Man, looking like some pretty slick threads here in Ohio, as it'll be Detroit and Columbus, courtesy of Fanatics. It's always tricky, Dan, with uniforms because you feel like you can never please everybody, but that's a sleek look to me. I still have the red and white and the lettering, the Hockey Town. Pretty good.
I love it. The script Detroit, the helmet. I love it. And those are the little details inside the uniform. It says Hockey Town that you...
Is that a little SpongeBob?
Yeah, it looks like...
That's the octopus. Okay, good.
And listen, I think it's a great look. Listen, I can understand here with the
cannon is unbelievable.
I can understand if they would have gone like an O, sort of like for Ohio State and all that. But they're known for the cannon.
The cannon is
what they're known for. I love the cannon. I love the look of both of these uniforms. The numbers are big. They're going to look great on television. It's going to pop. And the other thing about this too is I wonder how many cannons they're going to have there.
Oh, my God.
Right? I mean,
everywhere. Just
blowing them all up. How many goals they're going to score, right? We'll see, but maybe Werenski gets a hat trick then.
What's your favorite number? Like if you were playing hockey, what was your jersey number?
My jersey number? Well, I was 4 or 40. That was always my jersey.
Conveniently enough, I like 14. So Fanatics, go ahead.
That's my son's number. My younger one.
Please send a 4, 40, or a 14. Okay, Virk, Rosen, we'll go ahead and work.
I'll go 4, more 4. I'm a lower number for a hockey jersey.
Last thing, Oilers and Avalanche tonight. Who wins?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I'll go Colorado. They're fresher, and listen, Nate, Kale, Mikko, MacKinnon, they're gonna win.
Keith Irizarry, John Torchetti, Billy Jaffe coming up with NHL Now, and John Torchetti on NHL Tonight tomorrow. Wizard of Aztec.